Hi there. Welcome to Life is All About Choices. My name is Nancy Mueller, and this is a conversation, a platform intended to motivate, inspire, and empower you, the audience. So I really hope that you're excited to stay with us today. My guest today is Gina, and what I love about this, one of the things that I love about this, I love that I'm in the United States, she's in the UK, and we can come together, we can meet each other, we can become fast friends, and here we are having this conversation for you. So I absolutely love and appreciate and give much, much gratitude and blessings to the internet, and it's helping me with my mission. Gina, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me on the show. Really excited.
Absolutely. Oh, I am so excited to share you during this conversation today. And you know, Gina, before we go any farther, can you tell everyone who you are, what you do, and why you're so fabulous?
I can certainly do the first two. My name's Gina Gardiner. I'm an international best-selling author. I'm a motivational speaker, an empowerment coach, and transformational leadership trainer and facilitator. I'm absolutely passionate about helping people recognize that they have power. And I don't mean the sort of power where if I'm powerful then I diminish you,
right,
which we often see in the media and the news. I'm talking about that when we step into our power, then we also facilitate other people to step into theirs. And so I have a mission, and my mission is to positively impact on 1 million people in the next 5 years.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's what makes you so fabulous.
Thank you. Well, I think for me, if there's one thing, it's about focusing on what I can do and how I can make a positive difference rather than focusing on the negative and what I can't do.
Absolutely. And you know, that's what it's all about. It's each of us steps in to be our best self. We are making it possible for others to be their best self. However we do it, it doesn't matter if we make the best chocolate cake in the world and we share it with people, we are still raising their vibrational energy and doing something fabulous for them.
We've got to step into our own version of genius, haven't we? And own
yes,
it.
yes. Well, as anyone who has listened to any of these Life is All About Choices conversations knows, my guests have usually gone through something that maybe for some people, they would just allow it to get them down in their life and say, that's it. I can't handle my life. I'm done. It's over. Put me in a hole and zip up because that's it. I'm done. And Gina, you certainly have a story to share about that as well. Something that you overcame and you're just rocking your life. I love it. Would you like to share a little bit about 200 feet down, man?
Happily. I was appointed to be the deputy principal of a large, I think it's a junior high would be the equivalent in the States, school. Very young, I was 28, and I was appointed to be the catalyst for change. And for the first couple of terms, I think you call them semesters, I worked very closely with my principal to bring the school into the 21st century, really, or in those days, it was 1982, it was still 20th century. And we got to the February half term. Traditionally in the UK, we have a week off in late February. And I went skiing. Now, I was a very competent skier, used to go skiing 2 or 3 times a year. But on this particular trip, I was getting to grips with a brand new pair of skis. And the style in those days was to go for as long as possible. So my skis were 10 centimeters longer than I was used to. And I spent most of the week wrapping those skis around my neck. And on the Thursday, I'd had quite a bad fall and I felt a bit battered and bruised. So I said to my colleagues, I'm going to just ski on my own. I'll leave you to it and I'll meet you for lunch. Anyway, we met for lunch and they said, we found this fabulous new run, come with us. And so I said, fine. You talk about, it's all about choices.
Right.
That was a choice to go with them. So off we went up in the chairlift. And those of you who perhaps are familiar with skiing will know that there's something very magic as you come up from the valley floor and people start to look like little ants on the bottom of the valley floor. But there's a certain sort of silence as you go up into the mountains. And it was a fabulous day. The sun was shining and the mountains looked magnificent. We got off the lift and I followed. There were the 6 of us and I followed the other 5. And they turned a corner and came to a standstill. And you know when you just know something is very wrong, even before I got to them. And when I got to them and looked down, we were actually on the most difficult black run in St Anton called the Schindergratz, very steep, full of moguls. And for those of you that are watching or listening and don't know what a mogul is, it's where the snow is being carved by the weather. And moguls can be 1 inch, so it's like skiing over cobbles, or they can be much bigger. And these were monsters. They were 6 foot tall. And the whole snowfield was filled with these great big moguls. And they were difficult to ski. So I skied the first third and then I fell. And then it took me about 20 minutes to retrieve my ski from the soft snow at the side, and then to make my way skiing down very tentatively to where they were each sitting on a mogul, rather like an elf sitting on a mushroom. So I took my skis off and I sat on my mogul, and suddenly the mogul gave way, and there was nowhere for me to land. So I just bounced, knocked myself out. Fortunately, I think there were 2 things that were fortunate. One, I didn't have my skis on, and the second, that by becoming unconscious, that you are floppy, so I wasn't tensed. Anyway, I came to on a small area that was where I could land, because part of the problem was nowhere to land. It was so steep. It took a very long time for them to ski to me, and when they did, I didn't want the blood wagon. I didn't want to be taken off. So with their help, I managed to ski the rest of the slope. The good thing, of course, was with the falls and the bit of skiing, I'd have done most of the black run. There wasn't too much left to do. Travelled back to home the next day, and to cut a long story short, 5 or 6 weeks later, I went skiing again with the borough party with 150 odd children. And as the week went on, I felt more and more unwell, but I kept going. And then at the end of the last day, I said to my colleagues, I've got to go and lie down. And I found that I was paralysed down one side.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't want to call out and frighten the children. And so I just had to wait until someone came, and it felt like forever. Then all hell broke loose. I was carted off to the local hospital, and to cut a long story short, I got back to school a few months later, and shortly after that it was the school summer holidays, and I thought, time to rest and I'll recuperate. 2 weeks into the summer holiday, my principal's wife phoned me to say she had just found the principal. He died in his sleep. And so I became the acting principal, and so the summer holiday was taken up with all sorts of things, trying to get things sorted, telling the staff, helping with the funeral and so on. And very shortly after the term started, I was appointed to be the permanent head. Now, my mobility continued to deteriorate. I wasn't, physically wasn't thriving, but was determined that the school would do well, and I wanted my pupils and my staff to really have the very best learning opportunity that I could create. But my mobility continued to deteriorate, and in 1996 I sneezed and I ruptured a disc. I had failed back surgery syndrome, and I became a very good stalk. So I could stand on one leg, but if I put my other foot to the floor, I used to faint because of the pain.
Wow.
Fast forward, it took me 2 years, almost 2 years, to walk to the bottom of the garden. Very small garden, let me say. And then I was sick and I ruptured a second disc. And this time, again, failed back surgery syndrome. And I'd been using a wheelchair, but I was completely wheelchair bound. Now, there was a gift in all of this. And the gift was that I had to find a very different way of developing my staff, of helping them become independent leaders within their own classrooms and with their own subject. And I had to do that because in a very different way, because I couldn't physically get into the classrooms. My wheelchair wouldn't go through the door, and even if it did, it wouldn't have been able to get round. Now, it was very successful. The school became one of the first beacon schools, so I then worked with dozens of other schools and hundreds of other teachers, helping them to use the same principles that we used in school. We were on the best 100 schools in England list twice during my tenure, of which I'm very, very proud.
Absolutely.
And in 2004, my health was deteriorating, and I was given an ultimatum to leave headship, 15 hours a day, 5.5 days a week I was working, or I would be housebound. And so I then looked, what will I do? And I looked at my skill set. I was already a qualified coach. I'd worked for the government as an advisor. I'd worked for the National College of Leadership, the Institute, doing training and facilitation for leadership. And so I started working with corporates, doing training and facilitation and doing coaching. I took lots more qualifications. And then the recession hit and I had to reinvent myself again because corporates weren't using their money for development. And so I've always done life coaching and then started to work with businesses on a consistent basis, doing strategic development with them and also helping them get the best out of their people. Mm-hmm. I still do that, but now also expanding through Genuinely You to work with people personally, spiritually, and developing leadership, but doing that using the medium of online. So rather a long, complicated answer to a very simple question, I'm afraid.
No, but I love your story. And of course, you had shared it with me before, but I wanted to talk about that at the beginning of our conversation, because I think it's so important for people who are having any kind of challenges in their life and they're feeling, like the universe has just turned their back on them. And I mean, it's very easy for us to say, what, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and just want to give up. And that's why I believe that your message is so inspiring because, you didn't give up. You said, you just kept asking the question, how can I do something more with what I have, rather than look at it from, I don't have, so what am I going to do?
I think lots of people have said to me, weren't you brave? And actually, I don't know that I was at all, because let me give you an example. After the second back operation, I came home and I could not make a cup of coffee if somebody hadn't left a cup out or they hadn't filled the kettle. I could watch daytime TV or I could read. Or I could go into school, my mouth painfully works, use my hands, use my brain. There were people who could lift and fetch and carry, but I could effectively, strategically run my school, do something that made a positive difference, something that I loved and was passionate about. Or I could sit at home and contemplate just how limited I was.
Right.
It was a no-brainer as far as I was concerned, that one was just, that would be a living death. And I don't want to in any way negate those people who have haven't got the opportunity, or at least don't believe they have the opportunity, or they are so disabled that they can't actively find a solution. But most people, most of the time, there is something that you can do, something you can be, which means that your disability does not define who you are.
Exactly.
Now, I use disability as a metaphor because, okay, my legs don't work very well and I can get into my wheelchair and I can wheel off. I have to say, always at full speed. But if you believe that you're not good enough, that you haven't got enough money, or you haven't got enough qualifications, or that you're not pretty enough, or that you're too short or too fat, dissing your ability, having that belief that you're not enough, is something that you carry every second of every day. You're the common denominator, aren't you, into every situation.
Right.
So for me, if you're listening or watching this, have a think about your beliefs and your beliefs about what you're capable of. And I'd like to, in a moment, share another story with you about knowing what you're capable of. But we limit ourselves so much. And I think that if we actually looked for the gift in those really difficult situations, even in the most horrendous situation, there is a gift if you look for it. And for me, the gift of disability was, I'm sure I became more patient, and that I was a much better listener, more empathetic. And out of it has come the Enlightened Leadership Program that I've used with people, and the principles by which I live that I've used with coaching clients, and they work. They're very simple, and they work. But it would have been for me such a waste to be limited because I believed I couldn't.
Absolutely. No, and I think what came to my mind when you were saying that too, it helped you to be more patient, but it also helped you to be a good receiver, right? Because you and I were talking, I was telling you that in 2005, I fell and broke both ankle bones in my left leg, and I was in a wheelchair for 4 months. And you certainly do get to a point where you either have to allow people to help you, i.e. receive, or suffer in silence. And, in doing so, it's just as important to receive as it is to give. And there are so many people, especially women, we're so busy giving, and doing all things for all people that we forget the importance of stepping back and allowing someone to do something just as wonderful and loving for us as we're doing for them.
I think that's incredibly important. And it was interesting, I smiled to myself when you said, people who suffer in silence. Very often what they do is they huff and they puff, and they are expecting other people to recognize that they need help, rather than asking. But I've got quite a funny story. I mean, asking for help is something that I've struggled with, I have to say. I'm fiercely independent. And I do much better now, but even so, I still think it's a work in progress. And I was on a course actually in America, and my partner and I were working together, and the topic of this particular unit was about allowing people to help. And he got very cross with me. I learned such a lot from him, because he asked me, do you like helping other people? I said, yes, I love it. It's what my life's all about. And he said, do you like accepting help? And he said, no. I said, no. And he said, well, there's a mismatch here. If you enjoy it and you get such a lot out of it, what right have you to not give other people that same opportunity? It was the last day of the program, and I'd booked to stay an extra couple of days. And so I went off to the local mall, and it was about a mile, and I went off. I'd hired an electric wheelchair, and off I toddled to go and buy some Christmas presents, because it was December. When I came to come back up this very, very steep mile-long drive to the hotel, I'd gone up about a third, and the electric wheelchair died.
Oh.
So there I am in the middle of this drive, nobody around, and a taxi came up behind me. And this gentleman got out, didn't speak very good English, but through gesticulation, and it was pretty obvious that I'm slap bang in the middle of the drive, that there was a problem. So he parked his taxi, and he started to push me. Very heavy electric wheelchair, very steep slope. Then comes in another taxi with 2 passengers, and they stop, and the 2 drivers start speaking together, and the 2 passengers get out and say to me, what's the problem? And I say, well, the engine's died. I don't know why. It was fully charged. So one man pushing, then the man behind him pushing him, and the man behind him pushing him, and the man behind. And this went on till in the end there were 17 people all in a row, my chair up the hill. What a lesson in accepting.
Yeah.
What a spectacle. By the time we got to the hotel, everybody was laughing till the tears ran down their face. And it was a really, really big lesson for me. People enjoy helping.
Yes.
Don't be emotionally attached to the outcome, but do ask, and ask very simply, can you help me with this, please?
Exactly.
Rather than all of the mixed language or no language other than body language. It says, I'm unhappy, help me,
Right.
but you're not there to ask.
Yes. Oh, what a fabulous story. That brought tears to my eyes.
Certainly brought tears to mine, but we laughed.
Yeah. So I also find it very interesting that you attended a Tony Robbins course in London, and something really fabulous happened there. You were taught a very good lesson by someone. Would you like to share that as well?
I'd love to, because I think it's such a powerful story.
It is.
I had gone and studied neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and I'd done all of my training with one organisation, so decided I'd go and look to see as many people as possible using NLP. And I decided to go and see Tony Robbins, and at that time I was quite cynical. I thought, big American, brash, lots of hype, that you'll go on the course and there'll be nothing that's sustained. And I arrived at there's an exhibition centre in East London, and there were 10,000 people on the course, UPW. That in itself was quite mind-blowing. And in the morning, Tony Robbins had been talking about one of his programs, Date with Destiny, and I thought, I really like the idea of that, but it's in California, I don't have an electric travel chair, how will I manage? And I dismissed it, even though at that time I was working. While I was a serving principal, I worked all over the country helping with being an advisor. I went by car from my house to wherever I was going and used the same driver. So I dismissed it. In the evening, we did the fire walk. And for those of you that are not familiar, the fire walk means that you walk on hot coals for about 30 feet in bare feet without getting burnt, because you've got the right mindset. At that time, walking was much more difficult than it is now, and I had somebody either side support me, and I was really ecstatic that I managed to do it. And they helped me sit back down in my chair, and I just thought, that's brilliant, I proved I can do it. And as I sat back in my chair, I was facing the guy who was coming next. He was a double amputee. He had no legs below the knee. He turned himself onto his hands and he walked over hot coals on his hands. And in that moment, I thought, I'm self-limiting. If he can do that, then I can go to America. I'm forever grateful to that man. I have no idea who he is, but I booked my flight, I booked my ticket. I went off to do Date with Destiny. I've done all Anthony Robbins stuff. I'm a senior leader. And that gentleman does not know how many people his act of doing what he felt he could do has made such a difference to me and to the people I've spoken to. So if you're out there and you're watching or you're listening, how are you self-limiting? What are you saying, I can't do that because you fear of failing, because you fear success, because you just don't think you're capable. You're capable of doing more than you think if you set your mind to it.
That's absolutely true. And thank you for sharing that story. And what was coming to my mind when you were saying that also is how we limit ourselves. When, let's say that we find something that we're really passionate about. And for you, you were passionate about being the principal of the school, but because of being wheelchair bound, you found a different way to do certain things. But look at the work that you're doing now. So quite possibly, if you hadn't been in the wheelchair, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing today. And today, you're working and impacting lives. I mean, with the work that you do and, teaching people about self-limiting beliefs, as you said, it's gifts. Look at the gift in everything. And it's easy to be grateful when we look back in hindsight and say, oh, I wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened. But it's something that I call your story. Like we get caught up in the story. Oh, this happened. I fell on the ski slope, or, whatever the story is. And the more we share it, we stay in that energy of the story and how we tell it. And then we start to tell it for the shock value or the gasp value, or, and that's what we start to go for. And it becomes like a drug, like, oh, we have to have that gasp from people or that reaction from people. And we don't know what to do other than just keep sharing our story. But when we can actually say, okay, well, that was my story then, and think of your life as a whole book. So what's the next chapter? Where do you want to go from here? What's the next part? Go beyond your story. What do you want to do next?
For me, I'm just about to launch a leadership program, which looks at developing the person as well as the leader. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead other people effectively. It's going to be the Iron Man or Woman leadership program. It's about digging deep, and it's a 10-month program. It's just been accredited by CPD, which is the biggest professional development kite marking organization. I'm absolutely thrilled about that. And it's going to be available worldwide. For me, if we need to change the quality of leadership at every level, and I believe that by going to the leaders, we have the opportunity to impact far more effectively, far more quickly, and we need to do something. In the UK, stress, anxiety and depression cost us between 70 and 100 billion pounds a year in lost days' work. Now, that doesn't look at the human cost to the individual, to their families, to their children. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't include, then they're now talking about presenteeism, the cost to productivity and to efficiency in relationships with people who are stressed and anxious and depressed at work. They're not taking time off, but they're not firing on all cylinders either.
Right.
And I think for me, and what I'm so passionate about is, if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always got.
Right.
We have a situation where half the prescriptions in the UK are for antidepressants. I've just come back from a governor's meeting of a sixth form college, which is for youngsters who are 16 to 18, pre-university. Mm-hmm. The number of young people who are exhibiting significant mental health problems because of depression and anxiety, self-harm, is growing exponentially. We've got to do something about this.
Yes.
And if you can get key people within families, organizations, communities to lead in an empowered way, with integrity, with compassion and heart, then I believe you can make a real difference.
I agree.
So that's my next chapter.
No, and I love that. And I love, what you said is so many people, being so stressed and anxious, and they're leading others through that stress and anxiety. So they're taking those people in that same energy that they're in, and then they're leading through fear and control, because they're trying to control their life and they're afraid of what's going on. And it's just a ripple effect.
It's contagious. I call it the Ebola of the emotional world, because it is so contagious and it's so toxic and destructive. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be like that. You can lead, you have to lead by example, you have to walk your talk, but with help, and the program provides lots and lots of support with leadership facilitators, with group coaching, activities, videos, PowerPoint. The whole thing has been structured to hold people's hand and to hold them accountable during the 10-month program, and there'll be stuff to help them continue to develop afterwards. But it's been designed very specifically to give people the opportunity to grow during the program, so that it's not just, here's a leadership strategy, just plonk that on and you'll be all right. It's real fundamental stuff. Let's look at your own beliefs. Let's look at the way in which you turn up in the world. And ultimately, what's your living legacy going to be? Because so many people talk about the legacy when you die, what do you want people to remember you for?
Right.
Why wait till you die?
Right.
Every word, every action leaves, if you like, an imprint. So what's your living legacy going to be? How do you want people to view you? How do you want your actions to be measured in that moment, in that time? Don't wait till you die to measure up. Now's the time, and we've never needed it more, I believe, than at this time in history.
I agree. And, there's something bigger than that too. It's not just what you're doing, let's say at work, when you're leading, I'm just thinking at work, through fear and control, because you're also taking that home with you, because, that's not behavior or emotions that you can park at the door and then not take home with you. So if someone finds themselves in that situation where, like maybe they're listening to this conversation and they're saying, well, that's all well and good for you to say that, but you have no idea about the stress and the demands at my job and my work and the corporate, on and on and on. And of course, we both know that that's their story. That's what they've been telling themselves. And of course, every thought we think creates our reality. But it's difficult for people to imagine that they could start thinking different thoughts and start creating a different reality. So what would be something that you would share with someone, like a tool or a tip, if they find themselves like that in the workplace and they're just losing it?
I think the first thing is we started talking about earlier about limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And for me, one's beliefs are paramount. So if you think about Roger Bannister was the 4-minute miler, the first person to run a 4-minute mile. He was told that if he ran that fast, that he would die. And if you look at the footage, there are people with white coats and oxygen bottles that they thought that they may just be able to revive him. That he ran the 4-minute mile, I think in and of itself is amazing. But what I find even more amazing is that within 30 days, over 30 other people had run a 4-minute mile. Why? Because they believed it was possible. Now, if you're watching this, if you believe you can't, it's a completely and utterly a done deal. Mm-hmm. If you believe you can, then you have opened the door of possibility. And ultimately, when the door is open, then you have any number of options that become available to you. But if you close the door, then that's it. So I think the first thing to do is to say, examine your beliefs. Most of us like to stay within our comfort zone. The trouble with a comfort zone is that in the end, it becomes like being wrapped in a very, very thick duvet on the hottest day in the summer. Something that keeps you lovely and cozy in one situation can become a straitjacket in another. Mm-hmm. And so your comfort zone will expand when you start to do new things. And if you're fearful, if you feel alone, then you come and have a look at the stuff that we're doing, become a part of a membership of the Thrive Tribe where you can be supported and people can help you find your way through. There's a really structured program which is part of the leadership program, but it's the personal and spiritual development bit. And that would work for anybody. Mm-hmm. If you're leading people, if you are struggling because you were a great salesperson or you were a great technician or that your skill set is not about developing and leading people, then do something about it.
Right.
If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And so my tip to people is do an audit of your life at the moment. Have a look at what's going well, and there will always be something that's going well. And look at the areas of your life that you worry about or that don't give you satisfaction, and decide to take some action. Because unless you take action, nothing will change. Right. But don't go for the grand gesture. Small actions consistently taken make the difference. And if I was going to say to you, if you want your quality of life to be better, something very, very easy to do is to collect gratitudes.
Mm.
Start to look at the things in your life that are going well. Look at the things you can do. And, gratitudes for me, it's a daily practice. As I go through the day, I look for the little things that are easy to notice. For me, nature's a great source of gratitudes. Or just before this, a friend phoned, and I hadn't heard from her for a few weeks, and we had a very short chat because of this, but it was lovely. And I had a hot cup of tea, and, things like good plumbing. Be grateful for the little things in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go to sleep at night, start to scan the day and your collection of gratitudes and choose 5. And that will start to recalibrate your brain, so you start to look at the positive things in your life. And as I said, I don't want your listeners to think that, life was a breeze, and that, that I was, a Mary Poppins who didn't have down days and didn't have days when I threw my toys out around. I did, but the thing is, you don't stay there. Right. If you want a great quality of life, you're going to be fed up sometimes. You're going to find things really tough, but the sun will come up tomorrow. It's a new day, and you have an opportunity to make it a better day. And for me, it was always my way of thinking, tomorrow, if today was really bleak, then tomorrow will be a better day. And in the meantime, what can I do that's constructive, that's positive, that will make a difference positively to somebody else? And it's got me through even the bleakest of days.
Absolutely. It's about changing your energy. I suggest to people that they make what I call a happy list. Write down a list of 25, 50, 100 things that make you happy. And it doesn't have to be anything that costs you money. Or leave the house or anything. But like, one of the things on my list is iced tea with lots of ice. I love that. It makes me happy. And so, make your list. What is it? Whatever it is that makes you happy. Maybe it's taking 20 minutes of undivided attention with your children, and it makes you so happy. And you just say, okay, that makes me happy. But get that list and really think about it. And 50, 100 things at least on the list. And then here's the key. Every day you have to look at the list and ask yourself, how many of these things have I done for myself today? And that's it.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Around happiness. We make these criteria that need to be in place before we'll be happy. So I'll be happy when I've got the big house, and I've got the car, and I've got the best job, and I've got a perfect partner, and my kids don't tidy their bedrooms without being asked, and the dog never barks, and all of those. And it's the and as we get nearer, so we add more. But your list is wonderful. But if you just think, every time I get a hug, or every time the phone goes, or I drink a pot of iced tea, every time these things happen, or any time, I choose to feel happy, rather than making this hugely complicated and difficult list, which means that being happy is always in the future.
Yes.
And never actually get there. Choose to be happy now.
Exactly.
Life is incredibly short when you think about it, isn't it?
Yep.
And it's absolutely our choice. A little tip, if you want to start the day being happy, is as you wake up, open your eyes, do the funky chicken. And if your elbows don't touch the sides of your coffin, it's a new day. Be happy. Just as you've laughed, it means that you will start the day with a smile. And what better way to actually start the day than giggling and saying to yourself, do you know what? I'm making that active choice to be happy.
Absolutely. That's one of the things on my happy list is I love to laugh. I just think about, because when I look at my happy list, I really pay attention to how the things on my list make me feel. Like when I'm laughing, and it's soul cleansing. I don't know how to say it, but something just really makes you get in that feeling of, oh yeah, that's really hilarious. I love that. And, we could do so much more for ourselves. And we don't do that when we get caught up in the daily mundane I don't know, routines of, okay, well, I've got to get this done before this can happen. Or as you said, thinking about when this happens, then I'll be happy. No, it's about right now, right this second.
Yeah.
What can you do to just make you happy, make you do the happy dance?
Yes. And of course, you're releasing endorphins, serotonin, dopamine. They're the feel-good hormones, which are a great antidote to stress. The two biggest antidotes to stress: exercise and laughter. And, you know, for me, for example, exercise has been a real challenge, but it doesn't mean I can't laugh. And I have to say, having an overactive sense of humour has been a huge advantage, particularly with the wheelchair and access. But you can always find things to laugh at if you choose to look.
Absolutely. It's the epitome of the glass half full or the glass half empty. You know, whatever is going on in your situation, whatever is happening at the moment, you know, we can choose. That's why I'm always saying life is all about choices. I can choose to look at this in a negative way, or I can choose to look for the positive. I can choose to say, all right, how can I shift this thinking so that I can see this in a different light? Because when you choose to shift it into a different light, that takes you out of victim mode and victim mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And a shift of perspective is often all it takes, doesn't it?
Yes.
There's one strategy that I use quite a lot with clients who have great anxiety or panic attacks. And that's the mountain molehill strategy. Are you familiar with that? I
don't believe I've heard of it.
So something happens and it creates a high level of anxiety. So the question you ask yourself is this a mountain or a molehill? What about at the end of today? Will it be a mountain or a molehill? How about tomorrow? What about the end of the week? What about next month? Is it still going to be a mountain? At the end of the year? 5 years? What about the end of your life? Will you have downgraded it? Will it be that important then? Because if you're going to downgrade it into a molehill at some point, well, you can choose to downgrade it now.
Exactly.
And lots of clients have found that to be very, very helpful, because it gives them an opportunity to go through a structured process of thinking, which gives them a different perspective. So mountain or molehill, very much your choice.
You know, I would think that would even work. Let's say if you're having a confrontation or an argument with someone, you know, a friend, a family member, whoever, you know, and you think, oh, this person's just not listening to me. And then if you stop and ask yourself, you know, okay, is this a mountain or a molehill?
Yeah.
And even if you really want to hold on to it, you know, like you've got that bite and you're holding on, like, yes, it's a mountain right now. And I want everyone to see it as a mountain. But really, you know, how can you throw love at that and light? And when you do, it diminishes that mountain into a molehill.
And I would say being right is highly overrated.
Absolutely.
If somebody's flying a plane and I'm a passenger, I want them to be right, okay? If they're doing brain surgery, I want them to be right.
Exactly.
But for the most part, it's a matter of opinion. And when we hold on to we're right, we make somebody else wrong.
Right.
When so often it's just different. And I think when we can start to see that it's different, and that, you know, if that's something that you believe in, well, you know, hold on to that belief, okay? But I'm just going to agree to differ with you, but do it in a way that is done with love and compassion. And, you know, if you're going to let go of being right, going out of the room, slamming the door in a huff, also counts in you wanting the last word and wanting to be right. Body language can often say more than words. But I think that what you say about choice is absolutely right. And for me, one of the things that I think people don't understand is that when they don't make an active choice and they just let things drift, that often the consequences are far-reaching. So, you know, the conversation I have with many people is around the difference between confrontation, which many people will avoid like the plague, And because of that, then they let things drift, boundaries are breached, and all sorts of problems happen, rather than I choose to confront the issue, but I don't need to be confrontational about it.
Absolutely.
In fact, if I am calm and I use a neutral voice and a neutral body language and just say, when you do that, this is how it makes me feel, not you make me feel that way.
Right.
But also saying to someone, that's not acceptable, please stop, but doing it in a very, very neutral voice that's not about having a row. And if you take that one step back, it's about setting an expectation. If you're talking about children or colleagues or your subordinates at work, being very clear about what is acceptable. And when they don't comply, saying, do you know what? We talked about that. That simply isn't acceptable. And so I think, making active choices all of the time makes such a qualitative difference to your life, doesn't it? To your relationships, to how successful you are. And holding on to being right means that often you win the battle, but you lose the war.
Absolutely. And again, it's, the choices. Know why you're making the choices that you're making. I mean, so many times I think we make choices without putting thought into it, because we're making choices based on a belief that's just this reoccurring pattern of habit that's been going on in our mind over and over for years and years and years. And we've just never stopped to take a look at that and say, why do I believe that? Why does that keep happening over and over and over? And it goes back to what you said. If you do the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same results. So, every answer can be found by looking in the mirror, every one of them.
Because you take you wherever you go, don't you?
Absolutely.
I mean, the research shows 95% of our thinking is habitual. And our thinking drives our emotions, it drives our actions, our words. So if you think mindfully, if you want a better quality of life, you need a better quality of thinking.
Yes.
So, doing these actively, consciously makes all of the difference. I find it incredible. The research shows that we tell somebody when something goes wrong, on average, 37 different people. I don't use my 37, and I bet you don't use your 37. But we tell people when things go right, we tell 5. How would life be if actually it was the other way round? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be better?
Yes.
And actually, every time people tell the story, they embellish it, don't they? As you say, they want the shock factor.
Right.
It gets bigger, and it's like a fishing story, isn't it? The fish that they catch is this big, and it ends up being a whale.
Exactly.
That happens with the negative stories. I mean, again, lots of research that people who are naturally optimistic have better health, tend to be more successful at work, they live longer, they live more satisfying lives because they choose to look for the good in life. Doesn't mean their life is necessarily any easier in terms of what they face, but actually their approach makes life much more satisfying and much more manageable, even when life is tough. And you don't grow, do you, when life's going very well, but you do grow hugely when there are challenges.
Yes, you do. And, everything is yin and yang. So if everything's going smoothly and there are no hiccups, okay, so what are you learning from that? You're learning to rest on your laurels and just start sliding and just skating instead of actually moving. And movement in any way, shape, or form is so important to keep the energy moving.
My mum used to say that, when challenges come, it's rather like an iron sword that's tempered by fire. And iron becomes steel when it's heated to very high temperatures. And there's a huge difference in terms of the tensile strength between iron and steel. One's brittle. It can't be sharpened as much, whereas steel is very strong and can be honed until it's really, really sharp. And I think that's a really good metaphor for us. We need to be honed. We need to experience what life has to offer in order to become stronger and more resilient.
Absolutely. Well, Gina, thank you so much for sharing this conversation with me today and sharing time with me. I could talk to you for another 2 hours on this subject. I really could. And I'm so, so happy that you're in my life and that you are sharing this program that you're doing, because this is so, so, so important for transformational leaders to lead from their hearts instead of fear and control. So important. Can you please share how to get a hold of you if people want to look you up and know more about this?
Oh, thank you. At the moment, if they go to my website, which is https:// genuinely-u.com, and it's genuinely the little dash and then the word u.com. There's a leadership website just being finished at the moment, but if people are interested, they can email me at info@genuinely-u.com, and it's going live next month. And it will be on the website very shortly. And I'm just doing the final proofreading of both the website and for the leadership, and to put it on the Genuinely You. So your listeners are going to have the first opportunity hot off the press. But genuinely-u.com, lots of free resources. They can get a free digital download of the latest book, and they can contact me through the website.
Fabulous. Thank you. And also, people should never underestimate just going and reading what others are doing to make this world a better place, how that can lift their vibrational energy. Just
Absolutely.
Knowing that there's something happening out there that's outside of maybe what you knew, because we don't know what we don't know, right? And
Absolutely.
So just learn what others are doing and give yourself permission to get out there and say, okay, well, maybe I had a little hiccup today, but that's the worst thing that happens to me. I'm pretty darn lucky, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think so too. It's been an absolute joy to spend time with you. And I too am really pleased that we've connected, and I can see this connection's going to go on and deepen and strengthen over time. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina. And for all of you listening, check out Gina's information. And remember, life is all about choices. In the meantime, this is Nancy Mueller saying ciao for now.